Apply to season 5. Thank you. Well, I guess with that, we're almost obligated to get started.
All right, well, I'd like to welcome you all to our last Q&A session with Chris. Normally, we, those of you who've been following along, it's either been myself, I'm Marc Malonzo, or Akshay, who is in New York. So he's here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again.
Lovely podium. What?
So, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. And as much as we hope
so we usually just run through a quick overview of the episode, and then we'll open it to questions from the audience, and then we have Google moderator questions as well. So first of all, congrats. I think we just had that round of applause, but that was freaking amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how the hell did you keep it a secret this whole time?
Yeah, you know, we all came back in mid-September of last year, and yeah, I had about one more week, I think. Actually, no, I came back on a Saturday from LA, and I think I was back to work on that Monday. So I basically had like sort of one day to sort of kind of process it and kind of, yeah, figure out, all right, when I get to work, you know, on Monday, like, right, people are going to be asking me, like, oh, hey, welcome back. Like, oh, right, you're gone for all this time. And, like, how did it go? And, you know, I think the good thing for me is I play a lot of poker. So I've got experience, you know, putting on a good poker face and kind of lowering people's expectations and just try and just tell them, oh, well, it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. You know, right, we'll see how I did type thing. So I think for me, the biggest motivation was in season 3 of Top Shot. When I was watching the season finale, when Dustin Ellerman had won it, I was watching the West Coast feed, so it already aired on the East Coast, and so right, Facebook and Twitter was already afire congratulating Dustin. But 10 minutes before the end of season 3, during the commercial break, I whip out my phone just to check Facebook, and I saw that Dustin had won, you know, 10 minutes before I was about to watch it. So I remember that experience, and I said to myself, I don't want that to happen to anyone in season 4 and have them find out that I won before actually, you know, going on air. So I think that was a big motivation for me to stay quiet, and I think it's more fun that way too, right, for everyone if, you know, nobody knows how it ends.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. I actually thought you slipped up in a Q&A session. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Someone asked a question about what happens when a contestant goes home. You seemed a little too knowledgeable about the whole affair, so I thought, oh man, Chris doesn't win, dang it.
And that's a really interesting point that you bring up, because, you know, I was basically almost purposefully trying to plant these mind bombs, right, in people's minds, where it's like, right, like, yeah, I try and give a lot of detail about, you know, like the hotel bar and what it was like to, you know, hang out with other eliminated contestants and what it was like, you know, being in the hotel. And I have no idea. But right, I mean, that's where the vivid imagination comes into play.
So have you been dying to tell us anything specifically?
Well, I think you know, the question probably on everyone's mind is, you know, what is this professional shooting contract, you know, all about? And so, yeah, I got to say, Bass Pro Shops has been an amazing sponsor, and working with them. We started chatting about this about 4 weeks ago, and, you know, at the time, like at episode 1, when Colby on air basically said, right, like the shooting contract, we had no idea that, you know, the shooting contract was going to be a part of the deal. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, like, I did not go on a Top Shot wanting a professional shooting contract. That was just not something. I actually got really concerned. I'm like, well, geez, if I win this whole thing, I don't want to quit Google, and I don't, right? Like, I don't want to go shoot full time. That's just, right? That's not what I want to do. And the whole season, right? We kept on asking the producers and the crew, like, what is the deal with the shooting contract? And they kept on just sort of stonewalling us and just saying, well, we don't know either. We'll find out later. And basically what happened was 4 weeks ago, executive producer of History Channel, he calls me up and he basically asks me, hey, this whole shooting contract thing, it is wide open. Like Bass Pro Shops wants to tailor this to what I want to do. They want to accommodate my work schedule and my other sort of, extracurricular activities. And so I told them the following. I said, I really would love some kind of role interfacing with Bass Pro customers, getting, face-to-face time either in the stores or at Bass Pro events. And I really enjoy meeting new people. And so I told them that was sort of one ask on my wish list. Number two was, yes, I would love to go compete in other shooting events. But, most shooting events happen on the weekends. So, most professional shooters, they hold, day jobs 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then they go travel on the weekends. But I told them, I don't want to be shooting all the time, like not on that sort of national level. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, it's just not. I would love to do a few shoots. And then the third thing that I told them was, I plan to run for public office at some point in the future, and so any sort of like public speaking opportunities to sharpen my public speaking skills and get out there and just sort of get more comfortable. I told them that would be another great thing. So last week we had a conversation, and we haven't narrowed down the details, but at a high level, the contract is going to involve three main pieces. So one is there's 5 appearances at Bass Pro Shops across the country. Don't know which ones yet. So they'll be flying me around, and I'll be in the stores. A lot of the Bass Pro Shops, they have shooting ranges inside the stores. So yeah, I'll be doing live fire, demonstrations, lessons for customers, autograph signings, picture taking, like that, that kind of stuff. And, I'm from Southern California, and I think a lot of the Bass Pro Shops are sort of like Middle America. And I've traveled the coast and sort of Chicago, but I've never really been to the Midwest. So I'm actually really excited to go see a different part of America that I've only sort of read about or seen on the news. So 5 appearances. One of those appearances is going to be a public speaking engagement. Bass Pro, apparently they have some sort of marquee type event, keynote speakers and that kind of thing. So I'll be one of the speakers at the Bass Pro event, and yeah, and there's going to be a little bit of extra compensation on top of the $100,000. So sort of that's nice. I'll take it. And then finally, they will be sponsoring me for probably a 3-gun competition later this year. And we'll see how I like it. We'll see how Bass Pro likes it. And if it goes well, they might sponsor me for additional shoots. So 6 events over the last 6 months of 2012 is sort of that general schedule and time frame. And I guess the last thing to mention is I am leaving Google. June 1st, Friday is my last day, and as obviously we all know, Google is just an amazing place to work. But I think when something like this happens, right, this is just sort of an opportunity of a lifetime. So the shooting contract, it's not full time, it's a part-time gig, 6 weekends, right, over 6 months. So, I want to take some time off, explore other options. I don't know, maybe write a book, maybe try and get into the corporate speaking circuit. Come back to Google, go to Apple, maybe Yahoo. They seem to need a lot of help with with stuff over there, and kind of get them motivated and sort of the winning mentality, I suppose. Well, I'm sure they have a winning mentality, but So yeah, so I'm very excited to see what's next, and right, if it doesn't pan out, right, maybe I'll come back to Google, but I'm very excited to just go and shoot for fun and get paid, and I don't know, yeah, just sort of see what's next.
So Chris, you have no idea what it's like to go up to the hotel as someone who was eliminated from the show, but you obviously know what it's like to go back as a winner. What was the reaction there from all the people that were around, your peers, and whoever else was there to greet you?
So yeah, when the finale ended, Greg and I, the producers, did sort of our exit interviews, right, talking about sort of walk us through the challenge and everything, and it was about a 45, 60-minute drive from the Top Shot house to the hotel. I think it was a Courtyard by Marriott, and the one of the production assistants had called to the hotel, to the production assistant that was sort of managing all the other competitors, and so they told them, hey, Greg and Chris are coming, come down to the lobby if you want to meet them and congratulate Chris. And yeah, it was great. I walked into the lobby, and I needed to check in and get my hotel key card, that kind of thing. But obviously, William and Kyle, Gabby, Chee, Augie, Gary, they were there waiting for us, and yeah, it was awesome. Right, they had seen the finale, and we had chatted after that, but right, it was just nice to kind of come back to the hotel. Greg and I, it's hot as all get out in mid-September. So Greg and I, we're sweaty, we're dirty. It's been a long day. It's probably 5 o'clock at this point, and Greg and I, we've been up since 7 a.m. So we're ready to just sort of decompress a little bit.
All right, so going to the beginning of the show, one question I got to ask is, who cooked this huge feast for the four of you?
So Whole Foods. Whole Foods was the provider. I don't think they donated it. I think the crew, they went out and purchased Whole Foods. And the funny thing about that feast right at the very beginning of the finale, the final episode, is there's 4 of us, and if you pause that scene and look at the food on the table, it could feed 10 to 12 people easily. And it was they had a bottle of Jameson whiskey for us also, so that was really great. And we ended up not finishing all the food, but in real time, so the 4th challenge with the dueling trees, that was one whole day. Then the Saloon, that was a whole nother day. And then the finale, that was a 3rd day. So we're still on that 3-day cycle for this final episode. So on this dinner, we were sort of on day -1 before the next 3-day cycle. We saved all that food from Whole Foods, and we were eating it as leftovers for the last 3 days.
So the night before the first challenge, the first individual challenge of this finale, what are you thinking? Did you talk to your peers, your fellow competitors? What were they thinking? What was sort of the morale like in the house?
We were all just so honored and excited to have made it to the Final Four. That we in past seasons of Top Shot, just the finale, the Final Four is it's one of the most exciting episodes, right, where we all find out, hey, who wins this whole thing, and the morale was very high. We were really happy with the final group of the 4 of us to have made it, and we're really excited to compete against each other.
All right, so you walk up and you see the dueling trees, but this time, I guess is a Top Shot tradition, but this time it's with the repeater instead of pistols, right? So what were your initial thoughts to seeing that set up?
I was clearly excited to see another lever action rifle, and so the 1873 Winchester is the next generation of the 1860 Henry rifle that I'd used in the elimination with William. the loading procedure is different, but functionally it's the same gun. And so this is one point where I was thinking to myself, it's one clear advantage to go to elimination, both right in previous episodes, because the thing is you get more practice time. And then, right, if you make it to the finals, like, you might see the same weapons, come up again, and right, that's a huge benefit. So I was excited, and like Augie said on air, I mean, he's a pistol guy. I mean, I'm just sort of a, I don't know, generalist sort of shooter. Yes, I love shotguns, but I don't know if I would say like I'm better at shotguns versus pistols or rifles or anything else. So I was very excited to see that lever action rifle.
You had mentioned something about shadow practices. I thought.
Yeah, so a little bit of behind the scenes here. So on air, Colby said, right, no more practices, no more experts. We actually had shadow practices off camera before every single challenge. And the main thing to note here is it's mainly for safety reasons. I mean, right, you can't put a weapon, an unfamiliar weapon, in anyone's hands and then expect them to go compete with it. So that was sort of first and foremost. The crew was really good about safety. We had safety officers at every single moment that a challenge was either running or a practice session was going. Very strict protocol around loading, unloading, and clearing weapons, etc. And the second reason why the shadow practice sessions are necessary is sort of in the name of fairness, because every weapon shoots differently for each shooter. So, for example, this Henry, or the Winchester repeating rifle, it shot high for me. And right, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't know that, right, going into a challenge, that a certain gun was shooting, maybe it's shooting left or right or high or low. So we got these shadow practice time, in, but we did not get a lot of rounds. We got maybe 10 minutes and 12 rounds with that Winchester, right? So just enough time for us to get familiar with the weapon, comfortable with it, where we feel safe and comfortable using it, but definitely not a ton of time to master it or somehow get some kind of edge.
So your first opponent is Augie. What are you thinking? He's obviously a good pistol shooter, been solid throughout the show. Are you worried? Are you intimidated, confident, or indifferent?
What was going through my mind stepping up to the line against Augie was, I just honestly was not really focused on Augie or just really thinking about him at all. I was mostly just focused on, what do I need to do? What's my strategy? And right, what do I need to do to win? So the strategy for me was, if you've seen this plate challenge in past seasons, if you can get out in front, and if you can get to the point where you're basically playing offense, where if your opponent hits your plate, you can just knock it straight back. And what that translated to tactically for me was I just can't miss. Right, I need to get out in front. That means every shot that I throw down, it needs to hit a plate so I can get out in front. And that's where Augie, he fell short. He was in both his challenge with me and then his challenge with Greg. Augie was just missing. He was missing too many times. If you rewatch Augie's second run, he got 3 shots downrange with a few seconds left, and if those 3 shots had hit, he would have won. So that was sort of the dynamic that was going on there.
Yeah, well, I guess your strategy paid off because you absolutely smoked him. Congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
So yeah, when you beat him, like 100%, what was going through your mind at that moment?
It was really exciting to go first, because we're all just itching to just get this whole finale thing on, and we're amped. And to go first and to win that first heat, the pressure's off, right? I made it into the final 3, and I just remember being so relaxed and excited, and then right to follow up with Greg and Gary, just going back and forth, and then they tie, and that last. So some behind the scenes stuff. after Greg and Gary had finished, right, it was so close that we didn't know who won, if anyone had won. So there was about 15, 20 minutes of downtime as the compliance team, and for those of you who haven't heard me talk about this compliance team in previous sessions, there's a team called the compliance team. They're like the rules team. They're the ones who tell us the rules of the challenge before every challenge. They're the final adjudicators of any, was it a hit or a no hit? And so the compliance team went into the camera, like the production trailer, and they were rewatching all of the footage, frame by frame, millisecond by millisecond to just, see, okay, right, did the shot. And the rule was, right, they had to see your finger pull the trigger before the time ran out, right? So it wasn't that the shot had to hit the target; it was your finger had to have pulled the trigger before time expired. So, right, we're sitting there for like 15, 20 minutes, just right, waiting, like Greg and Gary pacing back and forth, and right, then all of a sudden we're all sort of keeping our eye on this truck that the compliance team is in. We see them come out. Then they go over and whisper to Colby. Pss, 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 pss. We're like, okay, and then Colby comes up and does his, all right, gentlemen, blah blah blah. It was so exciting, so exciting.
So LJ and Augie had a very close run as well. You were sitting back there on the bench watching them. Did you want one of them to win? What were you thinking while they had that really, almost nail-biting challenge?
I'll be really honest here. At this point, I really wanted Greg to win, and for the exact reason of how the whole season wrapped up. Of Greg and I being two of the weakest shooters at the very beginning. And I just remember thinking to myself at the time, like, this would be so cool if the story arc of season 4 is that, right, we end up circling back to it's me and Greg all over again, going neck and neck. And of course, at that time, it was a pipe dream. It's not that, I'm not like willing Augie to lose. It wasn't like that. It was just more, it would be really cool for Greg to win. And but if Augie won, I would have been just as happy.
So they showed a little bit of it, I guess, but when you went back to the house that night, it was just you and 2 other people. Was it really quiet in the house? What was going on at night?
It was probably one of the, few times where just we all had a lot of space in the house, and, it's Greg's a talker, which is great. It's like you know where he is in the house at all times because you just listen for his voice. But when it's only 3 of us, it was very quiet and just really relaxing too, to just hang out on the couch and just at this point, some other behind the scenes stuff is the cameras were not around as much because we're all just sort of kind of milling about, doing our own thing. Either Augie loved to like sleep on this bench outside, and we're just sort of not doing anything super interesting. But it was nice to not have the cameras sort of like around us, so we can just sort of have a little bit more freedom.
So the first thoughts on LJ's shot, 200 yards. Seems like a really hard shot, and then he misses. And then everyone basically misses. So what's going on there?
So to back up a little bit, so we at this point we the morning of like day 2 of this cycle, right? We're about to go into this shadow practice. We were expecting the Saloon, but we didn't know that it was going to be the Saloon until we got up to the the shadow practice, and we saw 6 guns, 3 long guns and 3 pistols, and then we're like, all right, like it's looking pretty good that it's going to be the Saloon challenge. And so what was happening after that practice, for the next like 4 hours, we all were talking about like what kind of shots that we like wanted to take with what kind of weapons. And luckily, it all, like our first three weapons and first three shots were all ones that we wanted to do. So, I mean, I've been talking about my love for shotguns for the past, 11 weeks. And I told them, hey, like, I would love, if you guys, like, don't mind, like, I would love to take that M4, the Benelli shotgun. And I actually wanted to do a more difficult shot. I really wanted to do a golf ball at 100 yards with a slug. And during the shadow practice, so we had targets at 35 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, and then like 75 and 100 and 200 yards. So, I think I had maybe like 6 shotgun rounds to practice with. And I actually almost got a bullseye at the 75-yard line standing offhand. So for me, that was my that sort of level, and I wasn't hitting the 100-yard target. So that's where I was like, okay, well, I hit the 75-yard target, so maybe I'll scale it back, and maybe I'll choose something a little bit bigger than a golf ball. It'll still be crazy. But yeah, so it was great. We all kind of agreed that, hey, right, we're all going to choose weapons that we wanted to choose, and we had also been talking up kind of a big game of just these crazy shots. And Gary had talked about this 75-yard shot with a pistol at some sort of target. And we're like, that's going to be nuts, but let's do it. So to Akshay's question, when Greg missed, that was a surprise. That was a big surprise. We had used the M14 in the very, very first elimination challenge, and he did very well. He's a military guy. I never shot an M14 before except for that first elimination challenge in episode 1. And the thing that I think threw us all off that I don't think really came off on TV was that we were shooting uphill. And I'm just I'm not used to shooting uphill. I'm just used to mostly shooting flat. And so all our shots went high. And I have a feeling that probably kind of messed with the way that we were, because in shadow practice we were shooting level. So I just don't have enough experience shooting uphill and understanding what happens to the bullet trajectory and dynamics there.
All right, so then you call for your shot with the M4 slug, but you said offhand standing. Mm-hmm. For those of us that don't know what that means, could you explain that one?
Yeah, so all the offhand part means is that you have no support. So you can't lean, we have that bench in front of us, so you can't lean, you can't even put your hip, on that bench, or you can't put your elbow down on the bench. So no support. Yeah.
So when Colby said that was the most difficult shot he could remember, what were you thinking after you called it?
So I think the interesting dynamic, to sort of take a step back from this specific shot, there's sort of, I think, 2 things that were going through all of our minds in the Saloon challenge. So there's one perspective, which is, okay, we know we're on a TV competition, and so the producers, they probably would love to see us hit make a lot of shots, because it'll look good for TV. But the other perspective is, it's the 3 of us, we're here for us, we want to have fun, and you know what, if this doesn't look good for TV, so be it. And we took that latter part of, hey, this is you don't come on to Top Shot to do normal shots, or we really wanted to push the envelope and, push the envelope of these weapons, of the challenge, and of, ourselves to see, hey, can we pull off these crazy shots that we've never, we've ever tried. And it was literally one of those, I think, we were living in the moment, not really worried about what other people are going to think or what this is going to look like on TV. And it was, I think, really nice. It was a great moment to, we were just doing this for us and having a lot of fun. So on the flip side of things, if we had hit those shots, right? Or if any one of, so I think one dynamic was, I missed my shot, and the thing that I don't know whether they captured very well on screen was, I mean, I was rooting for the other two to hit this shot. Like, I want to see somebody hit this small mason jar of hardware at 75 yards with the slug. I don't care if it's me. I want to see someone do it. And same thing when Gary went and missed his shot. Like, he wanted to see either me or Greg hit it. So, right, we had a very it was very sportsmanlike, which is, just the kind of environment that I think I thrive in and that and I'm used to. And also to kind of uphold the decorum of the competition and of the show. It was exciting that all of us wanted to see each other perform at our highest levels. And even if one of us falls short, like, we want to see someone else just, really, really, really kill it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome sportsmanship. I think Akshay has a question.
And then Gary keeps that trend going by calling a crazy shot and missing as well. So 3 for 3 there. But LJ calls a shot after that, and he misses, but you hit. That's awesome. And how are you feeling at this point?
I'm feeling really good, and knowing that there's only 2 more rounds left, and I'm up next. In my mind, it was a good psychological advantage to have on the other competitors, where I'm coming out of this round with 1 point to their 0, and I get to call the shot. Something that was another behind-the-scenes piece here. This was so incredibly frustrating. So Colby asks, Chris, like, what's your shot going to be? I say, the 22, the glass of jacks, 35 feet. Then we break for lunch. So the camera crews and like the sound guys, I think they're all unions. So they have rules that they can only work for so long, and then there's like forced breaks and stuff. So you got to be kidding me! Like, we've got 2 more rounds to shoot. Can't we just finish these 2 rounds and then call it a day? Nope. We break for lunch. We go back to the house, and we're I mean, I'm not hungry, but I know I need to eat something, because it's just obviously not a good idea. I'd eaten breakfast maybe 6. It's about 1:30 at this point. So the last food I had was probably like 7 a.m. in the morning. So I don't know. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something very light to eat. And the other funny behind the scenes thing is before we broke for lunch, Colby's like, all right, guys, this is not looking good. 1 to 0 to 0. He's like, Chris, you might want to think about choosing an easier shot when you come back from lunch. And I didn't say this to Colby, but in my mind, I'm like, no, F you. I'm not choosing an easier shot. Like, I'm going to keep my shot just to sort of almost rub it in Colby's face. Because Colby, his role is to kind of he wants us to hit shots. Everyone wants us to hit shots, including us. But the strategy for me was I wanted to choose a difficult shot that I felt comfortable that I thought I could hit, but might be challenging for the other 2. And then strategically, if I get that second point and they miss, I'm in the finale. And thankfully that strategy paid off, and I was very excited when obviously I wanted to see Greg and Gary hit, but at the same time, I'm in the finale. I got to be excited for that.
All right, so you're in the finale, and it's just between them. Was there? Who did you want to see win, Gary or Little John?
Yeah, at this point, Gary, former Red Team member, and he and I are very close friends, and we'd spent a lot of time in the house. But sort of back to my previous comment about how cool would it be if it was Greg and have this really cool story arc, So I'm rooting for both of them. I would just I don't really have a preference, but it was exciting. Just for another head-to-head showdown, Greg's 5th head-to-head showdown. Is he going to pull it off one more time? And he does it. Just incredible.
So how was that last evening and night with just you and Greg? They did show a little bit of footage of Greg, sitting in the yard and smoking a cigar. What do you do to unwind, and how did that night play out? Did you get any sleep?
It was really fun, just being back at the house. I mean, Greg and I, we were reminiscing about the past 6 weeks, and just man, right, how much we had been through, and I mean, he had a lot of ups and downs, and we were starting to talk about, right, are they going to air this bandana episode, and there's some other things that were like, right, we're talking about, hey, are they going to air this or that? But it was. We had an awesome dinner. Like we reheated some of the Whole Foods stuff, and we had some like fresh steaks also. So we like fired those up, and it was ribeye steak from Costco. Then we had these potatoes. Actually, they were like homemade potatoes with they were diced with like butter, olive oil, garlic, onions. We like roasted all of that like sort of in a pan on the barbecue. So it was like really fatty, like crispy potatoes. Like it was definitely incredible. And they actually brought us another bottle of Jameson. So not the full bottle. They gave us sort of like enough for maybe like two ounce sort of glasses. So that was something definitely one of the most memorable evenings for me to just reminisce and just get excited for tomorrow. We both slept very well. I remember we went to bed pretty early at like 10 o'clock. And this was the first time that each of us had rooms to ourselves. Because my bunkmate was Kyle, sort of coming to the end. Greg and Gary and Augie, they had been bunkmates through the entire 6 weeks. And so like right up until when Gary and Augie left, that was finally when Greg sort of had his own room. So we slept really well, and we were definitely amped to see what was coming up for the finale.
When I was watching that episode, just this whole part about the evening, I was thinking something that just crossed my mind. The two weakest shooters in the first round, the Plague Challenge, are here sitting close to the final, ready to be the winner of this season. Did you realize this? Did you think about it at all?
Yeah, and Greg was really concerned about how he was going to be portrayed, on the season, and we were talking about, hey, Greg, like you're probably going to be the bad guy. You're probably going to be the bad guy, and then obviously like when we talked about this again, like after I had won. Then it made it even more clear that like, hey, look, like you're probably going to be the bad guy because like I haven't like only my like that Atlatl like elimination discussion was sort of like the only one moment during the season where like I kind of screwed the pooch a little bit there, but right, I mean it's a great narrative to have, right, this like the bad guy versus sort of like the weak meat computer geek who's a nice guy, and so I'm like, Greg, yeah, I think right, you're going to be the bad guy. But I'm like, well, I think and I hope that as it gets closer to the finale that they will start revealing like, the nicer side of you. And, I mean, he's a great guy. If you ever get to meet him, you will like him. You will like him. He's very gregarious and I mean, and friend, he'll be my friend for life. I mean, that you can't go through an experience like that. I mean, a final showdown, and we were both, he was very happy for me at the very end, as you saw. That's exactly just how it went down. And that's going to be a special bond and friendship that he and I will share for the rest of our lives.
All right, so you two walk up to the final challenge, and it's kind of like the cumulative exam of challenges where you see 7 weapons. My initial reaction was that this was tailored to you because it seemed like they had every weapon that you just pwned on. And I guess then my second reaction was maybe you're just that good. So what were your thoughts?
So yeah, you got to remember that these so we're on these 3-day cycles, and these challenges take days to set up. So they and the weapons and the challenges, they're already chosen out. I mean, they're already chosen out before the season already starts, and they don't start building them until days before. So, another behind the scenes thing, we walk up to the challenge and Colby's standing there and we see the other 6 competitors and like we are, right? We're very excited and Colby does his, welcome to the final gauntlet, whatever. Time to break for lunch. Again. But this time the producers had given us the heads up. They're like, hey, yeah, we're going to go down, film this sort of intro thing, and then we're going to come back to the house, and then we'll send you back down. So at least like it wasn't this like heart-wrenching like, all right, we're going, all right, put on the brakes type thing. And so I remember when we came back to the house for lunch, man, it was a long wait, probably about 2.5 hours of waiting. And Greg and I was sitting in the poker room, just sort of in this like, lounge chair, just not talking, just going through some visual exercises. We knew what the weapons were going to be. We knew what the challenges were going to be since we'd seen the layout. So, it was sort of a good, opportunity for both of us to, kind of just, gear up for running the final challenge.
Stage 1 is the flintlock. I was excited because this was the gun that Greg really struggled on. And it didn't seem like he did that bad, but did you realize this and were you looking to get an early lead?
Yeah, so at every station, so this is part of what I was thinking about before the back of the house when I was sort of meditating and visualizing everything. I was thinking about, okay, right, which weapons did either Greg have problems on or which weapons do I think I have a distinct advantage on? So for this first station, I was banking on him forgetting to fully cock the pistol again, right? Maybe we'd see another, getting deballed and half cocked again, as Dylan would say, which is just again I think one of the most epic quotes of the whole season. But yeah, right. I mean, Greg. I mean, I was a little faster on the load and got off that first station, but he was right behind me.
All right, so after the second station with the repeater again, you had a pretty significant lead, but then you kind of struggled at the third station with the jars. What were your thoughts at this point?
Before we go to the jar, so one quick note about the Henry. Actually, this was the Winchester. I think was it the Henry rifle again? At Station 2. So regardless, so at the end of the elimination challenge with Will, so after like all the adrenaline had kind of like settled down, and I was like, I was just sort of processing everything. I was looking at my targets. Remember, I was the teal color. The color of my backstop was this off gray color, and so the contrast was terrible. And I realized that was part of why I was struggling, because I could not see where the rings were. And so I told the art department at the time after that Will elimination challenge with Will, I'm like, hey, if you ever run this challenge again in like a future season or any sort of challenge like this, like you need to have the backstop be like black or just have a stronger contrast. And so when I saw that in the finale, it was black. I was like, I am so glad that I, told the art department, gave them that feedback, and they actually, made it really clear for both of us, right? Greg was on those orange rings. And I thought at that station that I would have a clear advantage, right? Having, not just the elimination practice, but, just, in the fourth, or the first elimination challenge of the finale. But, Greg was a little slower, but, he definitely caught up to me. So to your question about the jars, I think that was maybe one of the few times during that whole run that I think my nerves started to get to me a little bit. And I was just rushing shots, and I think my hand even might have started to just a little shake a little bit, and I was affecting my trigger control, and I was shanking rounds. And I also, so here's another interesting thing, the this is one of the few times I think in any sort of Top Shot challenge where like we're really close to each other. In other challenges, right, we're so far apart, it's easy to just focus on what was in front of me. But I mean, Greg's rack is like 10 feet, maybe 15 feet next to mine. And unfortunately, while I was shooting, my eye was like glancing over at his rack, and that was bad. It was bad. It was something I should not have been doing, and I knew it. But, I mean, I want to check and see, hey, like, am I behind? Am I ahead? But I think that was sort of some of the problems that I was experiencing at that stage.
So the fourth round is the plate challenge. This is where you and Greg started off your rivalry, first episode. What are you thinking of this? Redemption? Revenge? I guess it was redemption for you, revenge for Greg.
Yeah, definitely redemption. And so, back at the house during that lunch, at lunch before we came on, we both told each other, hey, look, like, we both want this redeeming moment, like, and we told each other, we both need to clean these rows. Take our time, like, right? And this was, again, like, we both wanted to see each other clean it. And when I finished, right, I started running, but I remember glancing just quickly while I was running to the next station, just glancing over my shoulder just to take a quick peek. I saw he had like 2 plates left, and I was like, all right, buddy, right, knock him down, like, just right, keep on me, like, let's just keep this going, because it was so exciting. Finally, we're close enough to Colby where we can start hearing him. For the first 2 or 3 stations, he was actually pretty far away, and I had no idea what he was saying. But when we were that close at that point, we just heard him saying, like, right, this is the closest finale ever on Top Shot. We hadn't seen season 3 yet, so we had no idea that season 3 with Dustin versus Mike was just like this blowout. But that was really exciting to hear. Right, for Colby, sorry, this is like, bar none, this is the closest, finale ever on Top Shot. I was like, all right, like, let's just keep going. Like, I can't get distracted by Colby's, jibber jabbering, but. All
right, so the 5th station with the crossbows, it's almost a dead tie, but then you missed your 3rd shot. What happened there? Were you going too fast?
I remember thinking, before that station, right, this is a station I should have a clear advantage, a clear, decisive, distinctive advantage over Greg. And, knowing that he had a distinctive advantage on me on the last 2 stations, in my mind, I mean, I wanted to get to those stations first because I sort of felt I probably would need a little bit more time. And on that my third crossbow shot, I remember not having good trigger control. And I was looking through the scope. I had the right amount of lead, but then, like, right when I pulled the trigger, here's basically what it was, is I was almost running to the next station before I pulled the shot. Because in my mind, I'm like, all right, I know exactly where I need to aim, but before I pulled the trigger, I almost like just that little motion of just getting ahead of myself, and then when I miss, I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then, right, I mean, and then we just kept on going, and I mean, it was so obviously still so close and so exciting.
6th station is the B.A.R. This is the gun that you practiced with but didn't actually shoot in competition, and now you get a chance. But Greg beat you by a big margin there. Did you struggle with the gun? Was it just lack of practice? What was it?
Well, when we got to the B.A.R., Greg got on the gun first, but I mean, I was right behind him. And, like we saw on Tuesday, I mean, our first 2 targets exploded at almost the same time. And so here's another fun behind-the-scenes thing here before I kind of move forward with this part of the story. So the Top Shot crew, it's a huge crew. I mean, they're throughout the entire season, there were probably, I mean, just sort of my rough estimate, anywhere from like 100 to like 130, people involved in the production. And so for this final challenge, you've got the row of all the stations, but then then there's the cameras, but then behind the cameras, they had all of these big, storage trucks, right? We're right there transporting all the equipment. So all these trucks are lined up, all of the doors are down, and we just had this audience of like 120 people, watching, cheering us on, and so that was definitely a really fun element, right? Not only did we have the other eliminated green shirt folks, but we had this huge audience, and even crew members who weren't supposed, or not supposed to, who weren't working that day. They drove an hour and a half from home, out of their way, right, to come and watch, the season finale of like a show that they've been working on for the whole season. Because the crew, they don't work all 6 weeks. Sometimes they actually take a week or two off to go, film Glee or some other gig. It's a very like freelance kind of industry, and you're not like necessarily working continuously on the same projects. So when our targets hit at the exact same time, I remember hearing just this like collective gasp from like 120 people, and then you've got Gabby and Chee and Augie and everyone over here just like clapping, and like everyone is just like screaming and cheering us on. And then when Greg hit his target, the second target first, I had a moment of panic, and I was like, oh no, I need to hit my target. And you saw that I probably had about three bursts, I think, is what it took me until I hit that last target.
All right, so going into the last stage with the grenade launchers, it's so incredibly close. Just walk us through each moment.
When I jumped off the B.A.R. and ran to the grenade launcher station, right, Greg had already had his hands on the launcher, and I picked it up, and first thing I did was you got to rack this cylinder around, and I loaded the rounds, and I had another moment of panic here because when I closed the cylinder and came up on the gun, I didn't turn the scope on. It was a red dot scope. And this gun, it's heavy. It's probably a good, 20 pounds maybe. And so I lifted it up, and I'm like, I don't see the reticle. And so I had put the muzzle on the table so I could press this little button to turn the scope on, and then it came back up on the gun. And through my first round downrange, and right, I mean, just this great explosion. A quick sidebar. Because, I had seen this grenade launcher, even though Greg has shot very similar grenade launchers before, I had seen these exploding platforms in that second episode 2 with Keith and Kyle. And before this whole thing started, Greg and I, we were helping each other out, and I told Greg, I'm like, look, something that you need to know is this whole smoke thing. Like, when these platforms explode, it's going to produce a tremendous amount of smoke, and just get ready for it. The wind was blowing from left to right, and I talked about this in Behind the Bullet, and I was hoping that they were going to show some footage of this, but my first explosion, I just remember this thick, gray black cloud of smoke coming over my second, target, and I just tried to remember in my mind, where do I think that second orange exploding target was, and I lobbed 2 rounds blind into the smoke, and one image that I will never forget was through this black smoke, seeing that orange, right, that orange bloom, light up, and my platform explodes. But I don't know whether did ours explode at the same time? Did Greg's explode? Because remember, I'm just looking through the scope. My peripheral vision is just gone, and now that this thing's exploding, I didn't know. I knew that the moment I knew I won was we had 2 spotters behind us. Their job was, if our round had hit that exploding target, but the target didn't explode, it was the spotter's job to call hit, or it was Chris hit or Greg hit. So when my round hit, I heard this, Chris hit! And when I heard that, I was like, I think I won this whole thing. And then I come down off the gun, and Greg's platform is still intact. And he had actually gotten at least 2 rounds off on his platform, because I remember looking at it, and there was one orange chalk mark right above on the white. There was another orange chalk round right below it. And it could not have been any closer. And, hats off to Greg. I mean, we both shot our hearts out. And, it was my day to win. But, right, if we ran that finale again, he could have easily, bested me that day.
A little behind the scenes action. You had mentioned the shadow practice for the actual grenade launcher. Did you want to tell everyone here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we had about I think we had about 10 rounds with a grenade launcher, and so I mean, Greg knew exactly what he needed to do, and to talk to show a little bit more of like the mutual respect and the sportsmanship that was going on. We had. It was I think 30 minutes each of us with all the weapons. Maybe we had a little bit more time. There was some binoculars and a spotting scope. Now, sort of the way that the practice was designed was, I'll be spotting myself, and so Greg could go and either watch me or just go away and just sort of do whatever. But we were helping each other out. Greg was spotting for me, and I was spotting for him. And when I got on this grenade launcher, I started ripping off some rounds, and I wasn't hitting paper, and I was panicking because I couldn't see the trajectory, I couldn't see the round. And Greg asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you see where your round's going?" And I told him, "No, I don't see it." He's like, "Oh, you're going high, so just adjust downward." And then, I mean, I don't want to go through 10 rounds without hitting the target. And so, yeah, right, we were helping each other out, and we really, again, wanted to see each other do our best and be at the top of our game.
That's pretty awesome sportsmanship. I think, Akshay?
So when you actually won, at what point, I'm going to take a step back here. At what point in the competition did you think you had a real solid chance of winning? And then, now that you'd actually won, how long did it take after that last explosion for it to really sink in, for it to you realize it's all over and you're actually, completed the journey successfully, and that life is going to be all different?
I don't think at any point I really felt absolutely, confident that I had it in the bag, especially going up against someone like Greg, who we saw him come back time and time again. So literally, it came down to that final shot, and until obviously I knew I won for sure. I think it started to sink in maybe about an hour later, in the middle of my sort of post interview with the producers, because it started asking me what are you going to do when you get back home, or what do you think it's going to be like when you get back to work. What are you going to do with your prize money? When they started asking me those kind of questions is when I really started to sink in. I don't think life is going to be the same. When the finale starts. When the finale finally airs.
So I gotta ask. I guess Michelle had a Maxim spread. Do you have any plans for a GQ cover?
So yeah, if you haven't heard, Michelle Viscusi, who's on the blue team, really fun Maxim spread. Her, with guns and bikinis and stuff like that. Just a lot of fun. She's definitely parlaying her Top Shot experience into something fun. On your GQ question, I'm going to be talking to a few agents in the next few weeks, and just sort of, I don't know, explore what's out there. I can't even begin to imagine, well, what are my options, and sort of what could I do, what would I be good at, what would I enjoy doing. So I'll be sending updates on my Facebook page and Twitter feed if anyone is interested in staying up to date. I didn't mention Google Plus because let me give you one more quick sort of behind the scenes thing. Let me tell you, managing social media networks and a social media campaign is so hard. I mean, not only do I have my personal Facebook, my personal Twitter feed, and my personal G Plus page, but I've got corporate G Plus page. I have a G Plus fan page, a Facebook fan page, a different Twitter handle, and they have some apps, like you'll see one called Hootsuite that can basically help you sort of centrally manage, but G Plus hasn't been added to Hootsuite yet because we haven't opened up API access, so it's a whole other sidebar, but G Plus, it's coming soon, which is great. But it's very challenging and time consuming to manage like social media campaigns. And I think on a Google note, it's definitely been very insightful for me to literally experience the pain of our users and how hard it is to, honestly, G Plus, great product, but some pieces are not intuitive, like Hangouts on Air. I mean, it's going to be great once that becomes more of a popular feature, but it's been challenging, and we have a way to go. But I'm very confident that Google, we're going to figure it out, and there's going to be exciting stuff to come.
I guess that's hashtag first world problems.
Right. Exactly.
So any questions from the audience here? Really?
Let's get you the microphone here.
The first question is, my name's True, by the way. We were chatting yesterday.
Oh, awesome.
On
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah.
This is my wife. She works at Google.
Great, welcome.
The first question is related to the dueling trees. I was noticing a lot of times where like your shot would hit the third target up and it would flop over, but the impact would also knock another one over. How were they scoring that?
That was one of the most frustrating parts of that challenge. And here's some more fun behind the scenes part of that. So we asked them, we're like, okay, and I forget exactly which challenges earlier on in the season, but we asked them, hey, like we've seen like malfunctions happen in these in these challenges, and so yeah, what happens if a plate gets stuck in the middle? Are you going to score like if it is slightly more on someone's side, or does it need to be fully like locked and flat? This is what they told us. It won't happen. We've tested these trees plenty of times, and these plates will not get stuck in the middle. Right? And here's the great part. When the compliance team told the four of us that these plates would for sure flip one way or the other, we're like, no, we don't believe them. And like you said, you saw them like sort of in the middle, or they're sort of flopping around, and thankfully it didn't matter, right? There were none of the challenges. It didn't really matter. Like they ended up all ending up flat, which was good.
So how did they score the win around?
Well, if I remember, so if it was switched by secondary impact, it is what it is. Yep, exactly.
Right. The second question is, second winner in a row of the show that's not an IPSC champion or an operator. Why do you think guys that have been operators or champions in different shooting disciplines haven't fared as well on the show, at least in the last 2 years?
Great question, and I think part of it is the expectations that the other competitors set for themselves. If you're military or LEO, which stands for law enforcement officer, if you're an LEO, that there's almost this expectation from your colleagues and from the wider LEO and military community that you should do well. And I think there's a lot of pressure that I think it's both pressure from these groups, but also the competitors. Then they have this internal pressure that they put on themselves. But for people like Dustin and Ellerman, who won season 3, and people like me, it's like, hey, I'm just honored to make it onto the cast, and if I win this, yeah, like I want to win it. But literally, I think it just comes down to I'm just here to have fun. I'm just here to have fun, and I love, we all love competing, and to just like go through that thrill and excitement of team challenges, individual challenges. But I think having that just here to have fun kind of attitude is what I think kind of differentiates the self-taught or the non-military LEO competitive shooters from the rest of us.
Do you know what happened to Gabby and Chee?
So Gabby and Chee are still really great friends. Beyond that, you would have to ask Gabby or Chee about that. On a fun side note, so Chee will actually be up here in the Bay Area in June. If anybody's interested in going to the Richmond Rod and Gun Club, it's called IDPA. It's the International Defensive Pistol Association. There's a certain discipline of competitive shooting, and so it's the state championships. I'll be competing. Chee will be competing, and even if you're not shooting, you can just come and just and watch. And if you've never seen a shooting competition, you should come because it's a lot of fun. And I'm not expecting to do very well because competitive shooting is a whole different game than Top Shot, and I need to practice a lot before June. But I don't want anyone to kind of think that I'm going to be a California state champ. I mean, I would love to be, but it's again, like I said earlier, like I don't want to be a professional shooter. It's just sort of like not in the with respect to like winning championships. I'm happy and satisfied with winning season 4. I would love to compete, but I'm not like gunning to win. Like make it a career, if you will.
So has there been a reunion with you and the other contestants? And if so, what was it like?
So the filming ended in mid-September, and then we started February 14th. In between that time, there was what's called the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. It's one of the major sort of firearms conventions every year. A lot of people from season 4 and previous seasons made it to the SHOT Show. I couldn't make it because we had our enterprise conference that week up in San Francisco, so I was bummed that I couldn't make it, and it was a little tough because knowing that I was going to quit Google, I was like, what, like I could skip the conference, this Google conference, and go to Vegas and start networking, but I had some significant responsibilities at work for the conference, so I missed the SHOT Show, but I definitely plan to be at SHOT next year. And the NRA convention happened in April, which is just a few weeks ago. So I know Gabby and Greg and a few others, met in St. Louis, which is where the convention was there. And then in January, they actually flew all of us back to LA to film Behind the Bullet. So that whole Behind the Bullet, and it was good that they did that because we were wondering like, oh, are they just going to keep us? So after the finale had happened in September, like, are they going to keep us for another day to do the Behind the Bullet stuff? Like, right, we just want to go home. So they let us go home, and it was good 4 months until they brought us back, and that was good to sort of just give us some time to sort of process everything. And I think when we started in Behind the Bullet, when we start talking about things that had happened months before, it was I think more nostalgic, and you could probably see a little bit of that emotion coming through.
Let's see, you got a few questions here, Chris.
Sure.
So if you think back on the experience and the time in the house behind the scenes, who did you get along with the most? Whose time did you enjoy the most spending time with and chatting or doing? They showed some of those activities like you and Greg competing at the spitball. Yeah. That was pretty funny. Greg and Kyle, well, not together, but like Greg and I mean, we'd actually been like very good friends almost since like the day one. He also is possibly he has an interest in politics, and so we actually talked a lot of shop about politics. And Kyle is red team leader, and
I think he and I were just sort of we see eye to eye on a lot of a lot of things, and we were bunkmates, so spent a lot of time with Kyle. But I think to your question, I think the one person I'd probably choose is Gabby. Gabby and I spent a lot of time chatting, and she's around the same age as I am, and just a really like fun personality. If you're ever in the Miami, Florida area, look her up. She does lessons, and tell her that you're a Googler and you worked with me and stuff, and she'll take care of you. She's just a really great person, and she's trying to break into the sort of shooting sport as a full-time profession. So I talked to her a few days ago. I was like, hey, I have no idea what's going to be coming up next for me with this like shooting contract and other things, but I want to take her with me, and Chee and Gary and Greg and Top Shot. It's very much a family. It's not just season 4, right? It's all 4 seasons. Ian Harrison and I talked yesterday. He just invited me to the very first nighttime 3-gun shoot. It's happening in July. It'll be near Bend, Oregon.
3-gun, Chris, what's that?
3-gun is pistol, rifle, and shotgun. And so a lot of like shooting competitions, you're usually just using 1 gun, but 3-gun is sort of one of the hot sort of new competition types. And for anyone in the Dal's office, it's I know they've been wanting to get me up there, so I'm going to see if I can extend my stay and maybe shoot with some of the Googlers in the Dal's office up there, which is one of our obviously big data centers up in Oregon.
Cool. Second question on the Saloon side of things. So you mentioned how, at least in the first round, it sounds like you guys had premeditated your shots. You'd been talking about them, strategizing, sharing them. What about the later stages? Is that still true?
No, we had only talked about our first round shots, and then after that, it was definitely like, nope, we're going to keep it all close to the chest and surprise each other with whatever we choose.
Now, did you have your shot premeditated, or did you just improvise that with the jacks?
So I mean, while Greg was shooting, is when I was starting to think about, okay, like, because once I knew he was going to choose the Lee Enfield rifle, then I knew, well, which 2 weapons were left. It was either the Browning Buckmark 22 pistol or the FN57. I was thinking to myself that, well, the 22, it's less recoil, great precision pistol, and so here are some other fun things, I guess, that were going. This is a great question. Other shots that were going through my mind was, I don't know if you remember seeing the clear chest pieces. And when Colby was telling us about, the sort of the rules of the game, right? You can call your shot. It was like this mini chessboard and had like 3 pieces. So I was thinking, all right, I could do a shot like with these 3 chess pieces, but line them all up next to each other in a line, and you have to shoot the middle one. So that was one shot that was going through my mind, right? With the 22 pistol at 35 feet, I'd actually thought about that at 50 feet also. A second shot that I distinctly remember was there was a sugar cube tower. So it was something like 5 rows, 5 by 5, square of cubes, and then like sort of like 4 by 4, 3 by 3, whatever, right? And then there's this one cube on top, and my shot was going to be, you got to shoot the top sugar cube off. If you even like nick any of the lower ones, you don't get the point. So those are the two other shots that I was thinking about.
You made a good choice there. Okay, last question, I swear. On the Saloon side, do you guys have the option to do things moving? I expected Gary, given how awesome he was with the red cans, to do something like that. I mean, he seemed to have an advantage over everyone on that one.
That's a really good question. There weren't any rules saying we couldn't. And I don't remember if there were any targets that where he could have like simulated sort of, yeah. Oh, sure, actually, like, right? He could have thrown something up in the air and hit it. I think that was within the rules. Or yeah, like you need to be moving on the go, right? Take some steps to one side and take the shot while you're moving. But yeah, I mean he didn't talk about that at all, and obviously didn't happen.
Thank you.
Maybe one more live question. We'll switch to the door, and then we can flip back to live questions.
Hi, Chris. I'm Matt.
Hi, Matt.
So you said that the filming took place in September of last year?
August, first week of August to middle of September.
Okay. So there was a time between like September and basically yesterday, or this week, when you were kind of walking around knowing that you'd won the competition, knowing that you kind of had this fame, but it was like your own little personal secret, right? Because you kind of had an NDA or something, I'm sure, with them. So what was that like?
Great question. I mean, it got really complicated at times. I remember coming back to work, and like the first thing that was like going through my mind is like, my poor boss. I'm gonna have to like just like fake him out and like try and still do high impact work, but not like get too involved into anything, knowing that I'm gonna be going out of this escape hatch in a few quarters. And so I had a meeting with my manager on Wednesday, and my manager was at the viewing party on Tuesday in San Francisco. And I told him like Justin, I gotta apologize to you, because for the past few quarters, I've been like stonewalling you. Like he'd been throwing some like really exciting projects. He wanted me to right up level my my abilities and skills. I'm like, I'd be saying things like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. I would not get back to him. A few weeks later, I'd be like, Chris, did you get a chance to think about that thing we were talking about? I'm like, oh no, it's been really busy. Give me a few more days. I didn't think about it anymore.
So you couldn't tell anybody? I mean,
I told
friends?
no one. No one knew. No one. Period. And it was, I wanted it to be a fun surprise for people. And I guess the other kind of instance to kind of point out where it got a little tricky was in the episode 2 Q&A here. Somebody had asked me, did I get to fire the grenade launcher? And my answer was no. I didn't get. I really wish I had gotten to fire that grenade launcher because it looks so cool, right? So I had to put my mind in like sort of like the real time of what the viewers were watching, because I had fired the grenade launcher, and in fact, like I'd won the whole thing with the grenade launcher. So I had to like play these mind games with everyone here, and that was kind of fun. But it got a little mentally exhausting at times, where I'm always on guard and always having to think about what tenses am I saying things in, and hopefully people aren't putting things together. Like I was hoping my manager wasn't noticing that, like, hey, how come Chris is like kind of turning down all these like interesting projects that I know Chris would be interested in. Thankfully, like no one quite put all the pieces together, which is great.
So one more question, because my wife and I were saying that this year kind of had the coolest guns. I mean, the coolest equipment and stuff. I mean, that half track, everything was awesome.
Yeah, that was rad.
Did you guys, because like if you hadn't been involved in some of the challenges, you wouldn't get to shoot the whatever. I mean, did you guys ever get to kind of goof off a little bit with, and, let me try that?
We all asked, but the filming schedule is such on a tight schedule that only the people that get to shoot, that are in a challenge get to shoot the weapons. And once it's over, they're breaking things down because they need to go from like the challenge to the nomination range, or they need to go. You got to remember also that Top Guns, which is the spin-off of Top Shot on History Channel 2, was being filmed at the exact same time. So a top part of the Top Shot camera crew would spin off to another part of the range, and Colby would have to go over and film Top Gun. So they don't have time to entertain our desire to shoot these fun weapons as much as we wish they would have.
So Colby didn't get to ride around with Sawman with the Rambo and.
Not that we know of. I mean, whatever, maybe that happened on Top Guns, but at least on Top Shot, yeah, we didn't see that. Maybe we should take some Dory questions, or...
I think Akshay's going to do the door.
Great, yep.
So Jason from Mountain View has a first question. He wants to congratulate you on the fantastic poker face that you've kept up.
Thanks,
And-
Jason.
And wants to know if there was ever any secret that you might have let slip that people just didn't catch.
Huh. I don't think I let any secrets slip. I think the only time I was a little bit concerned was so when I came back, like my first week back in the office. So right, we were wearing these jerseys, and most of the time it was so hot that I usually only had one button, and so I just had this crazy tan. It was really entertaining. I mean, it was just dark. And then so I was at work one day, and I think I was wearing another sort of polo like this, but you could see this V, and a coworker had asked me and sort of been hey, what was that from? I was oh, Top Shot, being out in the sun all the time, and I just sort of remember looking at their face, and I was concerned that they were sort of processing hey, well, Chris. Maybe that meant that Chris was there for a really long time, and maybe he won it all, but it didn't slip out, thankfully.
We have an anonymous fan who has a question about the grenade launcher challenge. You mentioned earlier about how the smoke from one of the explosions kind of obscured your view. Did you ever consider shooting the further target first?
Great question, and so that we definitely could have, and I don't think we had, at least I hadn't considered that at all. But yeah, I mean, I think, well, knowing what I know now, that would have been definitely a smarter thing to do.
In the Saloon challenge, when you were up 1, and it was your turn to call a shot again, did you consider picking an impossible shot to force it to be 0-1-1 at the end of your turn?
It had run through my mind. I think, talking about the chess pieces and the sugar cube, and there were a few other shots I don't remember offhand that were going through my mind. But I think I more or less answered that question earlier. So let's move to the next question.
Okay, fill in the blank question from David in Mountain View. Winning Top Shot means you're the best blank among the other contestants. Or in other words, how did you beat other people who had more experience in real life and in competing in shooting challenges? So is Top Shot testing something completely different, or is it strictly testing your shooting ability?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, I think, in addition, I mean, it is a shooting competition. That's one of the great things that I love about the show is that it's almost as objective as a competition could get. You either hit the target or you didn't. You either got a fast time or you got a slow time. But yeah, to the question, right, it is more than just making the shot. It's about performing under pressure, right? When it's neck and neck, like me and Greg, right, are one of us going to fall short because of stress or nerves? I think a lot of viewers were probably expecting Greg to kind of fall short at some point in that final gauntlet, and he didn't, right? I mean, right, that within itself, I mean, right, super impressive that, he, both of us just, had a tremendous run. And so I think the other thought that comes to mind is, just being able to stay focused on winning. And also, I mean, I was really wanting to hold myself well, right, during the competition. And again, respect my competition, respect the sport. And for me, that's very important. Maybe it doesn't, just because you win, obviously the winner could have been someone who, didn't have that sort of respect for the competition, but it was important for me, and I think especially with the final 4 of us, and pretty much the rest of the season 4 cast, that was, I think, important to everyone.
So John from Mountain View wants to know if, actually he has some career advice for you and wants to recommend that you try out for the American Olympic shooting team.
Is this you? No. Thank you for the recommendation. We'll see what my agent says.
Here's a question from Lex, all the way from Washington State. Did they pay you the $100,000 right away, or is that something that came to you after the final episode aired? I guess it comes from the fact that some people have joint accounts and might give away that, a sudden flood of money.
So I haven't been paid yet. So that's part of the leverage, right? Like, I've got to keep my mouth shut, or else I risk not only not getting paid but getting sued in the process. And so once the final grenade launch explosion happened, and there was maybe 5 minutes of sort of like celebrating and stuff, the compliance team, which is it's basically the legal team also, right? They pull me aside and like, all right, Chris, like we need to remind you of certain clauses in your contract that restrict you from talking about things, and your payment will be dispersed within 90 days of the final date of the airing of the final episode. So, right, I got the legal chatter, and so the thing is, like, there's also a camera that recorded them telling me, and then I had to, raise my hand and say I understand on camera to affirm that, confirm that that had been told to me and stuff. So the check's in the mail. And I'm going to take a picture of it and some video of me opening it. And so I'm very excited. It's probably going to be about $40,000 after tax. So there's that part. But, that's where I think the Republican side of me starts coming out and, really, really hoping for lower taxes. So.
So, question from David in Mountain View. And after which episode did your friends and co-workers, family join the bandwagon and start supporting you? Specifically, have you, after this win, has anything changed? D-list yet?
D-list, yeah, I love that. I think I've upgraded from F plus list celebrity status to maybe D-list celebrity status for sure. The one person that I think has just like been in my corner the entire season from the very start was my sister. She just turned 26, and she was the one who's actually making me the most nervous because when I came back, she's like, I know you won this thing. I know you won it. You won it, didn't you? And she'd keep on like pushing me like, you won this whole thing, didn't you? Like, my car broke down before I left to go compete, and so when I came back, like I bought a car, and it's a used 2006 RAV4. It's got 118,000 miles on it, so it's not like a new car, but like I bought a car, and so like I knew that was sending the wrong signal to everyone, and so my sister's like, Chris, you just bought a new car, like you won this thing, didn't you? I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, don't get your hopes up. My sister was definitely someone who from the very beginning was, one of my biggest fans. My parents were honestly very skeptical. They're like, my dad in particular, he told me, he's like, Chris, whatever you do, or whatever you did, rather, right? Whatever you did, you better have made it past episode 1. That's all he wanted from me. He's like, don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass the family name. Just make it past the first episode, and we'll be proud of you. So, and I mean, he said that jokingly, well, half jokingly, but yeah. So.
So, David, again, if you had to recruit and coach someone to get on the show, what would you look for, and what would you coach this person on if you had 6 months before auditions?
Oh, interesting question. I think the main thing, at least that I was focusing on when I was practicing for Top Shot, was literally just focusing on the basics of marksmanship, not getting into like fancy schmancy this and that and optics and I don't know. There's just a whole laundry list of things that you could get into, But just the basics like trigger control, sight alignment, breathing control, just these uber basic fundamentals. And so I would probably focus on that with anyone that I was training. And I think the second piece is really exposing that person to pressure. And I don't know exactly how I would do that, but performing under pressure is something really important. Something that I was reflecting on, before going into the competition was, what kind of experiences had I had at work and in other places that I think really prepared me for a competition like this. And so for a year and a half in my core job, I was an escalation manager. And so what this was is a customer is really upset about something, their email's down or whatever. And we have like this internal escalation alias, and senior management's on it, and right, it's like fire drill center, just everyone's running around like the end of the world, happening. And I remember when I first took on that role, very stressful. Like I was scared that I was going to screw something up, that we're going to lose the customer or whatever. But after a year and a half of having angry customers just screaming at me on the phone and screaming at me in caps over email, and right, like having to like manage stressed out Google executives and senior management, I think really prepared me well to deal with like that stress on the job. I think translates almost perfectly to any kind of other stressful competition. But I think the key is you have to make that connection, right? Where I say to myself, I've experienced a similar type of stress before, and then when I'm experiencing it in competition, I say to myself, this is a very similar kind of stress. I know I can manage this, and I'll just do what I've done before to kind of contain that energy and not let it distract me or take over my focus and concentration.
Congratulations once again, Chris. I think those are all the questions we have. So I'm looking forward to seeing
any more. 5 questions, maybe 1 or 2 more. It's getting towards the end here. Of course, we have some beers and snacks, and I don't know if anyone wants pictures and such. Autographs, sure. I got some pens, actually. I'm actually kind of prepared. All right. Ricky, I think you got, or no?
So Chris, I was just wondering, have you been getting contacted by a bunch of random people now kind of outside of the gun world for doing other things that you may be interested in? Or has it mostly been associated with shooting stuff?
I think so. It's only been like almost 3 days since the finale ended, and a lot of viewers, they actually haven't watched it yet. It's on DVR. They're staying off of Facebook, and so they're gonna be watching. Because now it's the weekend, so they'll be watching tonight or in the next few days. And so a lot of these messages have just been mostly congratulatory notes. But there's been one where one of my good friends from high school, his dad works at the Oakley factory, which is in Orange County. So his dad told me that, hey, and I'm going home in a few weeks, and he said, hey, like if you want to swing by the Oakley factory, there's actually a lot of shooters who are Oakley employees, and they're like, we'll hook you up with some free swag and stuff. So yeah, I'm probably gonna go hang out at the Oakley factory for a little bit. If you've never seen the Oakley factory, it's awesome. It's this like huge airplane hangar type structure, but it's all metallic, and they have these huge rivets lining the structure. So it's awesome. Maybe use Google image search and see if there's an image or two online.
Saw on Colby's Twitter that the show hasn't been renewed for future seasons, and I was curious from inside the Top Shot community if you have any like advice to viewers, or if there's any kind of movement to kind of keep the show going, or.
Yeah, great question. So nothing's been confirmed. I mean, on the flip side, it's not like it's being canceled. So it's just everything's just sort of up in the air right now. probably the main things that fans of Top Shot can do to make sure that History Channel knows that, right, like there's a strong, Top Shot community. History Channel has a Top Shot Facebook page. So like definitely, even if it's just a quick one-liner, like please renew Top Shot, whatever, but posting to the Top Shot Facebook page, at history_channel, I think is their Twitter handle. So tweeting at the History Channel is also helpful. And of course, if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, snail mail and write History Channel a letter. Those are definitely like part of the things that the History Channel needs to hear from fans. And right, we've seen this happen with plenty of other TV shows. Right, well, we've seen it was like, well, they get canceled outright, but then right, there's this huge like fan sort of outpouring, and that can easily change executives' minds. And that's, I think, another great example of power of technology, power of the internet. That like each of us as individuals, we can leverage the internet to have a collective voice and change things if we so desire. So if you would like to see either season 5 or an All-Stars season, I bring the top 4 competitors from right out of the past 4 seasons. There's been a lot of chatter amongst the alumni about that. I mean, but it's us speculating, or how cool would it be if there was an All-Stars season. So please help out in either of those 2 ways if you can. Maybe one more question if there is one, and then we'll break.
I guess that does it. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you again, everyone. It's been such a fun ride. And thanks, everyone, for watching on the live stream. See you around.